Hey, what's up guys? Thanks for stopping by the channel. So for this video, I wanted to give you a first look and hands-on overview of Grand Seiko's latest release, the SLGA025, also known as the Atera Valley. This is actually a mountainous region in Nagano that's said to have emerald green waters, and that is reflected in choosing this dial that they designed, which absolutely gives you that tranquil emerald green watery effect. It's kind of a gradient dial as well, something that I would expect to see on like a Moser Pioneer, but it gets darker towards the periphery of the dial, and then there's a subtle striation pattern on the dial, and to me it's one of my favorite dial releases from the brand this year. Kind of similar to when they released the Genbi Valley at Watches and Wonders earlier this spring. The main difference between that watch is that the dial texture is a bit different, the green is a much lighter hue, and of course the case material is different. This is their grade 5 titanium case, whereas the Genbi Valley is their ever brilliant steel, and instead of their spring drive, the Genbi Valley utilizes their high beat dual impulse escapement movement. I actually compared those two watches side by side when I picked up this watch at the AD, and to me this Atera Valley presents almost a little bit bigger visually, even though you have the same dimensions. I think it's just because there's more contrast against the dial markers and hands with that fume gradient dial compared to the more muted color of the Genbi Valley. And if you are familiar with their Evolution 9 design and case dimensions, you're going to be very familiar and at home with this watch. I measure the overall case diameter at 40.3 millimeters. If you take a look at the side profile, lug to lug between my fingers here is 47.9 millimeters. And then I get a total thickness of 12.1 millimeters from the bottom of the screwed down case back, which also has an exhibition style display for the movement, and then to the top of a mostly flat sapphire crystal that carries their super clear coating, so you get really good viewing angles of this gorgeous dial. I'll also mention that between the lugs is an even 22 millimeters, and the supplied OEM titanium bracelet is 22 millimeters at the head of the watch, with a small taper to 20 millimeters before you hit the Grand Seiko signed clasp. These individual links are held in by a pin and collar system, so you just need to punch out the pin and retain the collar in the center link portion for sizing. You get half links to size the watch. Unfortunately, the clasp still does not have any micro adjustment. Although that being said, I've always been able to get a good fit for these Evo 9 cases from Grand Seiko. Simple twin trigger to open up the watch. And then of course you can see here the gorgeous 5-day spring drive movement, which I'll talk about a little bit more in the video. And here's a quick in-studio wrist shot just to show you how this watch would wear on a 7.5-inch wrist size. That is 19 centimeters in circumference if you're going with the metric system. And you can see just how well it conforms to the wrist. This titanium is also 30% lighter than steel, and this configuration, including the watch head and bracelet, only weighs in at 110 grams. But of course, you can lighten it up even more if you swap this out for different strap options, and the fact that the lugs have drilled lug holes makes it easy to swap it for 22 millimeter straps, which I've done, and very comfortable either way you want to go. So again, the star of the show is definitely this emerald green dial. It's just so dynamic and plays with the light very well. And I think it provides a very good contrast against the applied hour markers and handset, which if you're familiar again with Evolution 9 sports models, it's going to be very much the same in terms of you have the broad dual and even tri-faceted applied hour markers at the 12. You got the truncated hour hand, a broadsword style minute hand and then a needle-like seconds hand that just sweeps along so nicely with the spring drive movement. A subtle detail is I also like the fact that they capped the handset so you don't actually see the post or pinion that's there. I also think that the date aperture and the actual font for the date is more of a widescreen format in their spring drive models than their high beat. I could be mistaken by this, but I think the date is very legible, so that's a really nice touch. And then you do have a chapter ring at the very periphery of a dial, just to quickly get a gauge on the minutes as well. In terms of the spring drive caliber that's being utilized, it is their new 5-day caliber, the 9RA2. It's really nice because they also switched out the power reserve indicator that's normally on the dial side, and then they put it on the back of the movement. So you can also see that through the sapphire display window on the case back. Now this movement is insanely accurate to, they claim plus or minus half a second per day, and I think that's actually very conservative. When I previously owned the Lake Sua, which is one of their first models to come out with the 5-day spring drive, it didn't deviate more than 1 second in an entire month, which is absolutely insane. Now, to operate the movement, it's done via their screw down and signed GS crown. It's actually a great size. I measure the crown diameter at 6.9 millimeters, very nicely gnarled. It has manual wind and hacking features, and then also a quick set for the date. And because it is screwed down, you're also getting a capable 100 meters of water resistance, making this watch a true sports model in my opinion. So that is my quick overview of the SLGA025 watch. Again, personally, it's one of my favorite dials to be released from Grand Seiko this year. It's so dynamic, so punchy, and it really gives you a different feel depending on the lighting conditions you have it in. In terms of potential points for improvement, I mean, I will say that aside from the dial, you're getting very much a repeat of what Grand Seiko has been doing for the Evo 9 models for the past few years. They could really improve the clasp to have micro adjustment, in my opinion. Maybe give the bracelet a little bit more of a taper, maybe from 22 down to 18 millimeters. And again, while it might be controversial to some, I think this particular colorway would benefit from having lume on the handset and the applied hour markers. But as always, guys, I'd love to hear your feedback on this latest release from Grand Seiko. And if you do enjoy this content, please consider subscribing to my channel. It really does help me out. So that's going to wrap up this video, and I can't wait to catch you guys in the next review.